Okay, so thank you everybody for joining us here today in the webinar, just making sure 5 strategies to manage the chaos. I'm Miki Feldman Simon. I'm going to tell you about myself in a little bit. I think before Rachel and I introduce ourselves, I really want to say that we're living in unprecedented times. And it really feels like so much is out of our control. And today we're going to talk about strategies that can help you gain clarity, identify what is within your control, what is not, and how to gain control of your thoughts, your feelings, your actions. So you really want to grab pen and paper if you don't have any next to you yet. And you'll be able to go back also to the recording afterwards if you want to pause it apart and really take your time sort of identifying where your gaps are and answering the questions. So you'll get the recording afterwards and you'll be able to do that as well. And we'd love for you to communicate with us throughout the webinar, whether it's through the chat or the questions. I'll be monitoring that. So please tell us what you think, what you're answering to the questions, and we'll also have a Q&A session at the end of the webinar. So a bit about me. So Miki Feldman Simon. I'm a certified career and executive coach. I also have a bachelor's in psychology and a master's in organizational behavior. And I'm the founder of IamBackatWork. I have over 25 years of corporate experience. I've held a variety of roles, many years in human resources, but also marketing and business development and operations. And as you can hear from my accent, I've also lived in different places around the world. I am Israeli, Australian, and American in that order, but I've moved between those continents at different times. And I've also taken multiple career breaks throughout my career to move continents, to take care of my kids when they were young, and to take care of my parents when they were aging. And after successfully returning to the workforce after each one of those breaks, I decided to start IamBackatWork. And my mission has been to help other women regain their confidence, regain their independence, successfully return to the workforce and remain there. So I work with women to help them return to the workforce and succeed in the workplace afterwards. I love working with smart, motivated people to help them really live their best lives, both personally and professionally. I'm also a mother of 2. They're not with me here right now. One, my 20-year-old daughter is studying in Montreal. My 25-year-old son is in Salt Lake City. So currently it's my husband and I isolating by ourselves with our 2 poodles in Massachusetts. We are quite a hot spot right outside Boston. And now I'm going to pass it on to Rachel. And Rachel, please introduce yourself.
Yeah, happily. It's so fun because Miki and I are in like sort of similar and completely different stages in our careers and lives. So I just love when we get to collaborate. So I'm Rachel Dash-Dougherty, if you can see that on the screen. I'm a native from New York City. I currently live in Connecticut, where I own my own private practice. I'm a LCSW, licensed clinical social worker. And I founded my private practice the year my daughter was born, 3 years ago, a blur. It's called Grounded Therapy and Coaching. And I'm a therapist. I'm also a 200-hour yoga teacher. I'm a business owner. I'm a mom, and I play lots and lots of roles. And I'm also here with my 3-year-old, my husband, and our dog. We're hoping that they're all going to be calm tonight. Yeah. But I work with ambitious and motivated professional women to help them experience and kind of tap into their confidence and know their worth.
Okay.
Yeah. We ready for a breath exercise?
Yeah,
ready?
Get grounded. Yeah.
So awesome. So this is part of my work is just tapping into our breath, feeling present and grounded. Being from New York City, I'm always all over the place. So just trying to stay grounded, just sit, potentially upright, right? Like not military straight, but just upright, noticing the points of contact on the seat that you're in or the couch, whatever it is. If you're on the floor, good for you. And just take a breath in through your nose, and we're going to exhale through our mouth. Awesome. We're going to do that 2 more times. So take a inhale in through your nose. You can close your eyes or keep them open. And breathe out through your mouth. Notice any changes as we do it 1 more time, just to settle in and be present for the exercise. Oh yeah, I'm feeling good. I hope you guys are too.
I am.
And thank you for being here. Yeah, so I don't think I can see the chat box, but I'd like to know what people are feeling right now. You know, Miki and I are here to support you and talk about our strategies, and we're curious what you're feeling right now, because there's a lot of feelings happening, right? What's going on for you right now? You can pop that in the chat or the question box.
Joanne saying stressed. I get you, Joanne. I really do. Who else? Sure, there's other people feeling stressed. I'd love to hear from more of you. Rose is saying stuck. Okay, thank you, Rose. I'm hearing overwhelmed, concerned, losing myself, and relaxed after that breathing exercise. Okay.
Hey.
Tilaniti saying she's
Awesome.
feeling frustration, another overwhelmed from Jackie. So thank you for sharing all of that.
Yeah, some patterns emerging, right? There's a lot of similar stuff going on.
Roxana is saying pressured and then alone in the alone pandemic and new separation.
Oh, all right. Well,
Okay.
thank you, everybody who's sharing, because there is so much going on right now.
Okay, so when Rachel and I were planning this masterclass, we really wanted to be able you to implement the strategies that we're providing you immediately. And what we found in our work really helps people is to ask questions. It's like you have a bit of a coach in your head and you ask yourself certain questions that help you work through different issues, whatever you're facing. So I'm going to post the questions in the question area so you can all see them and they will make more sense to you as we go along. So don't worry if not, they don't quite make sense. But basically, when you're facing something, these are a few general questions you can always ask yourself. What is in your control and what is not? What are you assuming is true? Is it a fact? What are areas that you would like to improve? Why is it important to you? And how are you choosing to feel, behave, react? Okay, so there's a lot of research also, just so you don't feel the idea is that we don't overwhelm you. So I just want to mention there's a lot of research that shows that we should be working on improving one thing at a time. Okay, once that thing becomes a habit, you can work on the next thing. Okay, if we try and make too many changes at once, usually it doesn't work. So as we talk through these different things, you can ask yourself the different questions that we mentioned. Try and think of one thing that's important to you and maybe the one thing that will make most impact on your life, and try to concentrate on that. And I will copy in the questions while I pass on for the first strategy to Rachel.
Yeah, all right. So we need to talk about recognizing our assumptions and our belief systems and sort of noticing that chaos and uncertainty are pretty constant, right? It might feel, and it is, this is an anomaly of a time, but it's also pretty similar to a lot of other times. And when we start to recognize that our sort of system in our minds, right, we take an assumption that we notice maybe is a thought. And what happens is that impacts our emotions, which impacts our actions. And it's all based on something that's not factual. And so what I like to encourage people to do is use the court of Judge Judy, right? So she doesn't take any guff from anybody, and she wants to see receipts, right? She wants to see some evidence that your belief, your thought, your assumption is accurate. And she won't settle for less. right? So you have to work with your mind, because once you start, our thoughts create our emotions. And so if our emotions are coming from nonsense, then we're going to be a big mess, and we're going to be taking action from places that aren't really based in facts. So you can kind of break down and question some of those things that we're feeling right now potentially and change them. And we'll get into a little bit more of that later. But working through and noticing, I actually had a great and terrible fight with my husband the other day because I assumed I knew what he was thinking, which is a terrible idea. And see, this is work for everybody. And so I, sort of way after, I was like, oh yeah, whoops, I assumed he thought one thing, he thought a different thing. And then we got into an argument because I was reacting. So I thought that was actually a really great example from real life of this exact thing. And so my emotions impacted my actions, and we got into an argument when we just should have talked it out, and I should have explained more of what I was thinking about.
That completely makes sense. So I love the quote by Mark Twain that he says, "It ain't what you don't know that gets you into trouble. It's what you know for sure that ain't so." Okay. So those things that we treat as facts, but there are assumptions and they're just not true. So every time you hear yourself pushing back on whether it's an idea that you have, or you're in a work meeting and you think of a career change, a new business idea, and you have that voice in your head that says it's just not going to work, then you should ask yourself, do I know this for a fact? Do I have evidence to present in court to Judge Judy? Or is this based on my assumptions? And examples that people say, like, people not pay for my services. Have you tried? Do you know that for a fact, or is that an assumption? Or nobody is interested in hearing my ideas. I'm going to get fired. People are stressed now. So what is that based on? Have you actually received any negative feedback? So again, you want to ask yourself, what are you assuming is true? Is it really a fact? Okay. So now I'm going to talk about the second strategy, which is assessing the 4 pillars of basic health needs. And the pillars are sleeping habits, nutrition, staying physically active, and social support. And you can also think about these as the basics of self-care. And each one of these could so easily be impacted under current situation. And these 4 pillars are also the foundations for regulating our emotions. So you can think of the 4 pillars as like 4 legs of a table. So if any one of those legs is unstable, it impacts your coping mechanisms. So take a moment to assess. First of all, are you sleeping enough? Have your sleeping patterns changed during the pandemic? So for some people with young kids at home, 2 working partners, you may be working late to make up for hours that without childcare during the day. But if you're constantly not sleeping enough, you're also not going to be as productive. So how can you make sure that you do get enough sleep, more sleep? And good question to ask yourself is, how much sleep do you need to function well? I need my 8 hours. I'm not a nice person when I don't sleep my 8 hours. Try to also reduce LED screens before you go to sleep. I think now reading the news before we go to sleep can be very upsetting. So try not to do those things just before you go to bed. And I can tell you that also in the beginning of this pandemic, my husband and I were watching Netflix through the night. We're night people, but we were going to bed really late, and I saw that it was really affecting me. I was not as productive the next day. It was easy to just let Netflix play on the next episode. And at one point I decided that 10:30, I'm going to bed, whether it is I'm going upstairs or I'm going to bed at 10:30 at night. And for us, that's early. And I have to say that at one point, my husband also, he comes up at about the same time most nights, not always, but he's also noticed that he feels a lot better when regularly goes to sleep at 10:30, we get enough sleep and are much more productive the next day. I can tell you that last night I was working very late and I went to bed late, and then my whole day today, I woke up in the morning and I was feeling tired and I didn't really want to do yoga and I didn't want, so exercising was going to go out the window, and it has this rippling effect on everything else throughout the day. Next pillar is in the basic health is nutrition. So are you maintaining healthy balance of nutritious food, whether it's vegetables, fruit, whole grains? And it's true that in the beginning of the epidemic, it wasn't a simple chore to make sure that we had everything at home. There's more planning involved, whether you're trying to minimize how many times you're going to the supermarket to getting deliveries in. And lots of people are now providing 3 meals a day, and sometimes to very hungry teenagers as well. So there is a lot more planning and work involved, but are you making this a priority to eat well? Are you also drinking enough? So I can tell you that I changed my water bottle. I used to have this opaque water bottle and I couldn't see how much I was drinking. And now I use this big water bottle, and yeah, I don't know if you can see the things that are floating in. I like to add mint and lemon and ginger in there, but it entices me to drink more. And then I see how much I've been drinking during the day. And if I see I didn't drink enough, then okay, it's time to get going. Another thing with nutrition is I noticed that while we were watching Netflix late at night, we were also snacking a lot. So we were dipping crackers in hummus, and a box of nuts was on the table, and they were just going, and I can tell you that it was definitely a load of unnecessary calories. So after getting into the habit of going to bed on time, okay, one thing at a time. So after going to bed at 10:30, I decided, you know what, after 8 p.m., I'm not going to snack anymore. I'm not eating. And it was easier for me to make the rule of no eating rather than say, oh, maybe I'll have fruit or maybe this, because then it was a little too vague. So after 8 p.m., no more snacking. I can tell you that I've managed to do this more than 90% of the time. My husband's snacking less, too. And it's made a difference in how healthy we're eating. And so for me, the unhealthy eating was the snacking. Okay, we usually eat quite healthy, but for some people, it's been stopping by the fridge and the pantry frequently. And we've all seen the memes of what we're going to look like this summer. So one of my clients was saying that actually for her being at home, there are a lot less temptations, because she has full control over what food she brings into the house. There's no snacks in the kitchen at the office or going past Starbucks, etc. And she's actually been losing weight that she's wanted to lose for a long time. So I'm asking you, what can you improve to eat more healthy and a balanced diet? And another client of mine, again, 2 working parents, overwhelmed by needing to provide 3 meals a day. So they decided to get their kids involved in the cooking, you know, offload from the parents. Also, the kids are really learning great skills before they go off to college. And they started ordering the boxes, the pre-made boxes of ingredients that have the directions, that have everything in there. All the kids need to do is cook them twice a week. Now the kids are making stuff as well, which has been really helpful for the parents and getting the kids more involved and taking more responsibility. The next leg of our table is exercise. So are you able to exercise regularly and stay somewhat physically active? And I know that gyms have closed down, and for some people that was the go-to place, but there are many online options that from yoga studios to free apps that have extended their free periods, like free trials of it's Peloton, and I know that for yoga it's Down Dog. So there are other options out there for you to try. I think the main question really is, Are you making exercising a priority? And for those with kids at home, think about what can you do with other family members. So one of the women I'm working with, she started running with her teenage daughter. So now the exercise time has also become part of their quality time. And the last leg of our table is social support. So social support while socially isolating. I think that one's become quite interesting. I think, you know, Kathy was saying as well how it's hard, especially if you're alone. So how are you getting the social support that you need? We're social animals. We need to interact with people. Sometimes we may need, if all our interaction is through Zoom, we may want to limit that as well. But so are you setting up Zoom, FaceTime with friends, with family members? I have scheduled Zoom coffee times with friends. Now it's on a regular basis. A lot of companies I work with are scheduling online happy hours and coffee breaks to try and recreate those social interactions. There are also different games that you can play online with other people to make it a bit more fun and interactive. And as things open up, you can start considering how do you socialize while distancing. So one thing you can probably see from what we're talking, that one pillar can very easily influence the other. So we go to bed late, we don't sleep well, we don't feel like exercising, and then often we're looking for energy, so we may snack more on sugary things to bring up. So one thing influences the other. Can influence for the worse, but it can also influence for the better. You start exercising, you feel energized, you sleep more. So identify the gaps that you have in these 4 pillars and think about what you can change. How can you make your table steadier? Rachel.
And I think that kind of falls into, you know, it's like self-care is like a bigger category, because I know when we were prepping for this, thinking about, you know, juggling a 3-year-old and trying to make exercise a priority in our house, and that we tried to get her involved and she was not having that. So trying to like make time and get it done like early in the morning before our kids up and running, and just kind of choosing maybe 1 or 2 of these things as a priority to make sure it kind of gets fit in. And I know my clients, you know, they're doing similar things of like signing up online when they used to go to the gym as a big priority, and also, you know, a lot of massages in my crew of people that I work with, which is so funny, but we can't access that now. So it's sort of like refiguring it out for a time.
And we'd love to hear from you if you would like to share what you have been doing and what are your gaps. Feel free to write it in the questions box. Okay. Rachel, do you want to continue to the next strategy?
Yeah, so we're going to talk about routine, and we're going to talk about schedules and boundaries, which kind of really, I think, is a great segue from that second one. We must have planned this so well. So when you think about our routine and the structure of our day, which is definitely like part of those pillars, is setting some boundaries, right? And you choose your priorities, and we can remember that we're in control of that. It's really helpful to kind of notice we can control our thoughts, which control our feelings, which controls our actions, and that we're in charge of a lot more than it might feel sometimes, especially right now, right? We can choose how much news we consume and when we consume it, right? It's not by accident that TV turns on. I listen to NPR on a podcast and it chimes every like 2 hours. So I have to make sure I don't have that happening, right? But I do want to listen when I wake up. I listen when I'm on my walk with my dog. And I listen to like a different one, but all in the morning, and then I'm kind of done. And you get to pick, right? You can create that. I created that routine. I always used to watch the news in the morning, but not as seriously as I do now. But also I made sure there was a specific time, and then I'm not checking it before bed because I just want to go to sleep. Also, I might never go to sleep, right? So it's sort of choosing a priority and then developing a routine out of that decision. And remembering that you're worthy and worth so much that you get to choose what you're thinking. You get to choose what you're feeling based on those thoughts. You get to choose your actions, and we'll actually get into that, you know, towards the end. But I want to emphasize that we might be acting, especially around boundaries, that like we have to talk to our family every night or all the time and have these scheduled Zoom calls when you absolutely do not. There's no requirement for pandemic communication. It's about what you prefer and what works for you. So talking to my family before bed, not great, because then I'll be all thinking about what they're talking about and what came up. And so we have to take control and sort of assert ourselves. And sometimes I think that comes from a place of not feeling worthy and not feeling that it's okay to say no right now because we're in a crisis, right? We're in this big pandemic. And so we can choose instead to remember that if it's important to us to have space or self-care. Mickey, I was sharing a story with Mickey the other day about my child bursting into the shower I was taking. And since I had a kid, I have never loved showering so much because it's like a couple moments of peace. It's all about me, right? Like I can't really hear anything going on in the house because of the water. I can't have a podcast on. And it's just a moment for me. I can like put my fancy mask on, use my coffee grinds, right, to rehydrate my poor skin. So when she interrupted that, I was really dysregulated. I was really unhappy about it because it was my like brief moment of time of calm and peace that was completely disrupted. But I was able to bring it back in. One, I got her out the bathroom, and my husband took her out and brought her back to what she was supposed to be doing. She had escaped and come into my room, right? But it could have like I could have let that ruin my whole day if I wanted to, but that's just not helpful at all. So I got to choose how I reacted to that. It was kind of adorable, super intentional, and I didn't need it to like get in the way of the rest of my day.
So, by the way, you mentioned after we talked the other day, it made me think that when my son was young and my husband used to travel a lot, so I was basically a single mom for a few years and without a moment to take a break. And I really taught him that I love my coffee. I'm still having one now. That if he would come up to me and say, Mom, I want to do this, I want to do that, he'd have to look in my coffee cup and see if it's finished. And it would be like the rule, Mom gets to finish her coffee cup in peace and quiet, right? That was my boundary, right? That I want to drink my cup of coffee in peace and quiet. And he would come and he would have a look and then he'd walk away. And sometimes it would take me a while to drink my cup of coffee. And that was okay. So I also want to share that in talking to clients and for some parents, especially with younger children, that a routine is very helpful for them. That the kids still get up, they know, the husband knows when he's taking care of the kids, the mother knows when it's her time, if they're both working, they have to have a schedule to make it work. But for others, seriously, at this point, routines have gone out the window. Okay. One woman was telling me how her kids are going to bed much later than they used to. But you know what? They're also getting up late and she has a few hours of quiet time in the morning to work. Okay. That's her priority now. So, and I think the most important thing here is to really work out what works for you. And for working parents, if you are working remotely now and you weren't working before, so what's changed in your schedule? And a lot of my clients are telling me that they have a lot more back-to-back meetings. Discussions that they used to have in the corridor are suddenly put on as a 30-minute block on their calendar, and they don't have any actual time to do their work. And they're going crazy because it's like they're working a lot harder under more difficult circumstances with kids and everything else during the day. So some things that you can do to control that, again, is setting boundaries, we're trying to get into different routines, is try to shorten the meetings. So those corridor discussions that they're not full, they don't need to be full 30 minutes on your calendar. And maybe they can get resolved in text or email as well. It doesn't all have to be a meeting. And block time on your calendar for the work that you actually need to get done. So identify the top priorities for the day and try to get them done in the morning. Block the time to get them done in the morning. And also block time for lunch, for exercise, maybe time to be with your kids. And I can go on and on about the productivity and habits, but I'm not going to continue with that now. I do want to say one other thing about boundaries, because I think that during this time, again, boundaries that we had, everything is changing, whether it's separating work and family. And I think a big part of it is, what do you feel safe doing? Okay. And what what should your teenagers do? And are you going to go shopping? Are you not going to go shopping? Are you going to have your cleaner come? You're not. I miss my cleaner. So we all have different comfort zones and different circumstances as well. You may have young kids, and you may have people in your family who are higher risk. So you have different things that you need to consider. And I think we're going to have to reconsider those again and again as we go in and things change and things need to start and we'll reopen again. So really think about those, think about what's good for you. And not, don't be judgmental for other people as well, and just set your boundaries and think what works for you. Okay. We'll go into strategy number 4, recognizing what is in your control and letting go of the rest. So a very basic element to gaining control of your life is to understand what is in your control and what isn't. So basically what that allows you to do is to use your energy in the best way, because you can spend a lot of time thinking about how you could change situations in your life. And when you spend that energy on things that you do have control over, then you make progress. But when you spend your energy on situations outside of your control, you're just wasting precious resources. So what is in our control sometimes is not just black and white, okay? There is some gray area. And you can think about it as a spectrum, okay? There are some things that you almost have complete control over, like what you're going to choose to eat. And there are things like if the sun is going to continue burning that we really have no control over. So it's the things in the middle of the spectrum that get a little bit tricky. And they require us to acknowledge to what degree can we productively make a change. So think of a line, and where on one side there's situations where we have no control over. COVID-19, we don't have much control over this right now. The other side of the spectrum, is in your control. And you know what, how much we socially isolate is in our control. As a mother with both kids away now, I had to really think about what is and what isn't under my control. So as this epidemic was starting, I could send my kids gloves and I could send them hand sanitizer and masks. But I also had to accept that I can make suggestions on how much they should quarantine or socially isolate, but I really didn't have control over what they actually did, and I had to let go. So if you look at situations in life through this lens of how much control you have over them, it really allows you to prioritize your energy. The more energy you put into the things that are under your control, the more powerful the outcome is going to be. So at this point, you can worry about how many people are dying, what will happen to the economy, while neglecting to socially distance or taking care of your finances. So, and other examples of that is people who hate their job, but they're doing nothing about it. Or they're complaining about political issues, but again, not trying to create any change. So your quality of life is highly dependent on on you knowing the amount of control you have over things. And when you blame external powers for the things that are under your control, you're really losing your personal self-worth. And when you try to change the things you have little control over, you're also going to make no progress. So when issues come up, actually think about how much control you have over them. And you can ask yourself a very simple question. I'm going back to the questions. Can I do something about this? Okay. If the answer is yes, okay, then take action. If it's important to you, of course, you always want to ask yourself, is this important to me? If it's important to you, you want to take action. So what are you going to do about it? Another follow-up important question is, when are you going to do something about it? You want to commit to it, okay? Now, if the answer to can I do something about it is no, then you need to learn to accept the situation as it is. And Rachel's going to talk more about letting go and accepting.
Yeah. Oh man. Expectations especially, right? We put so many levels of expectations on ourselves, it's hard to even catch them sometimes. I think, especially as a mom and business owner, right? I'm supposed to be the super picture perfect, like Instagram ready mom and teacher, partner, boss, whatever. And that's impossible. So we have to work on noticing our expectations and considering which ones to let go, like Miki was talking about, kind of prioritizing and deciding what's important so you could take action or do something about it. What's not important? What can you delegate? I work with an assistant principal and we worked a lot on delegation this week because she is in charge of all the students' programs for next year, which they don't know what it's going to look like. She's in charge of planning graduation, which is going to be virtual or drive-through or something. And she has to manage all the students, any delinquency, like just an unending list of stuff. And she was describing that she was hunting down photos of students to hang during this virtual graduation drive-through thing. And I asked her, like, are you serious? Like, are you looking on Facebook and stalking your students to find photos of them? Ask them for them. And you shouldn't be the one to do that. Have your assistant send some emails out. And she kind of chuckled and was like, well, I thought about it, but she didn't want to do it. She was never going to let go of half of the things that we identified that were so beneath her bigger priorities. So we had to kind of sketch out what is super important, right? And then what's urgent, and kind of use that model to kind of break out what she actually needs to do and what could be delegated, because it's so hard to let go of control. I get that. But I am so into delegation. Like, let someone else do that. They might be better at it than you. I told her to ask her kids, like, you have kids who use the internet. They will find all your students in 4 seconds and have all their photos all organized. So just choosing to let go and delegate, access your resources, right? Like cooking with your kids. I try to use my child as a dumbbell to like curl her and lift her or whatever all the time. But she doesn't always want to do it, but I try, right? So it gets her engaged. She sees me doing it, right? Like I can delegate some of my tasks. I can use the resources I have available to me and work that in. So start letting go. It's such a relief. And you know, trying to notice again expectations that you're putting on yourself, right? Like I was fully intending to teach my daughter so many things during this time. She was going to be a super genius by the time this pandemic was over, right? And be there for my clients and dress up every day. I was all on it. And like as time has ticked by, I am very much in a comfort zone of being as supportive as I can, and then running out to hang out with my kid in between appointments and making sure she sees my face. It's a lot messier than I expected, and I had to let go, right? We can all do a little bit of letting go of what we've decided we have to do. And again, choosing your priorities and what's super important for you. Because then you have the energy, then you have the boundaries set up for like, nope, this is my focus. And these are the things that are really not important right now. Like I'm not learning Spanish during this pandemic, sorry. Not happening, right? And I wouldn't set myself up that way.
I think you'll be fine without the Spanish, so yeah.
That too, right? But there were some lofty goals I was seeing from my clients and online, you know, in the early days here.
I have to say I started off with a lot of lofty goals as well, and now I'm saying, okay, what's important? And yeah, there's still work, there's still lots of other stuff. I find I'm doing a lot more things than I did before. So, and some of them are more cleaning and things that I miss my cleaner, and other stuff and chores and different things that just didn't exist. So.
Yeah, and I realized when I was looking at my notes, I forgot to mention that someone in my Facebook group today actually was stating that they kind of regret some of the choices that they made in their life, and talking about that's like a big expectation, and also considering you can let go of some of those thoughts too, not just expectations, but like regret is, I feel like that's both a thought and an emotion. It's a gray area for me personally, but she could choose to think differently and not be filled with regret all the time because she could let that go. And so there's many layers of this letting go, but I want to make sure I pointed that out, that I'm a big fan of letting things down and not carrying them on, especially if they weigh you down.
I get you. Okay, fifth strategy, ladies. Identify your triggers, and then we can react or respond. So I think it's all clear to us that most of us are under a lot more stress now. So we could be spending more time with people that some distance between us is usually helpful, or sometimes at work people are not spending enough time with colleagues, and there's a lot more miscommunications and contentions are high. So what are triggers? So trigger, think of a stimulus that impacts your behavior. And it's easy to think of a positive trigger. Think if I'm smiling at you, then the natural thing that you're going to do if I smile at you is smile back, right? So that's a positive trigger. Also, you can think about, let's say, a song that you love and you hear that song and you just want to start dancing. It makes you feel good. It can also be a sad song that you just feel down when you hear it. So those are triggers that make you feel something, okay? And some of them, by the way, are unconscious triggers, so we're not quite aware of the impact that they have on us. And there was some research that they did, and they found that most people thought that the weather doesn't impact them. But what they found is when they asked them about how they feel on the days that it was rainy and yucky outside, they all felt worse. I can tell you when it's a gray, yucky day outside, I am not as happy, okay? But I also know that that's a trigger for me, so I'll think about things to do that will cheer me up because I know that that is something that impacts my mood. So to identify the negative triggers that you have, you can ask yourself, first of all, a really simple question. What drives you crazy? That's likely a trigger for you. So if there's something, and if you know, if you want to share, feel free to. If there's something that drives you crazy, it's probably a trigger. Also, you can think on when do you find yourself suddenly just losing it? You're no longer patient, you're not compassionate, you're easily irritated, frustrated. Is it a situation? Is it a specific person? It can be a colleague, a boss, your teenager, your mother-in-law. Many different options there. So when do you suddenly feel like your temper is just rising, okay? So basically think of stressful situations and the response they elicit from you, okay? And it's always helpful, whether it's when it's a manager, a parent, a colleague, a partner, when they respond in a calm, rational, and positive manner. Because what happens, it de-escalates a situation rather than escalating it. It's up to us how we choose to respond, okay? And I'm emphasizing that we always have a choice. Though sometimes the environment seems out of our control, we have a choice on how we respond to it. So what can you do? Pick a behavioral goal that you're pursuing, okay? Think of who, what influences your response, okay? Are you spending too much time on Facebook instead of exercising, okay? Is being interrupted when you start speaking a trigger for you? You're trying to sleep 8 hours a night, okay? So list what's getting in the way. What is making you, let's say, not go to bed on time? The idea is really to learn about what are your specific triggers, and then what contributes to your success in responding to them. What choices do you have? How else can you react? Other examples, are you trying to talk calmly to your kids and not scream at them? What is stopping you? Do you have to react to your teenager rolling their eyes at you, or what is that going to lead to? So first, pay attention and identify your specific triggers. Then list the people, situations that influence the quality of your responses. And you have to think about how you should ideally respond beforehand, okay? So you know what the trigger is, because once you're angry, you're not really thinking rationally right then, okay? So So you want to have a plan of how you should react when you're triggered. And the best thing to do when you're triggered is take a deep breath and choose how to respond when you have the outcome. And I can tell you, as a mother of teenagers, I learned to take so many deep breaths so that I could respond and not just react, and try and de-escalate situations. Rachel, would you like to
I
add
love it.
that part?
Yeah, I'm sorry, I'm still laughing. Yes. So thinking about reactions and responses, right? It's about being mindful, because like that silly argument with my husband, had I taken a moment, I could have said, oh, I'm assuming something, right? And done something about it to calm myself down, and then go, oh, we're on the same team. We're going to talk this out, right? So you can take a sip of water, right? You can take a breath. You can go to the bathroom, right? Like just getting yourself out of the situation so you don't react. It gives yourself some time to not open up your mouth, because you can think it, and that's okay, right? We all have thoughts all day long, but it's when you say it. The analogy I like to use is tube of toothpaste, right? You are never getting that toothpaste back in, right? It's not happening. Believe me, I've tried.
I
So
love
makeup too. So, right, a reaction cannot be taken back. You're probably gonna have to apologize for it later too. It comes with consequences. So when we give ourselves the space to go, oh, I know what I'm feeling right now. I'm going to say something nasty, or I'm going to snap at my kid, or, you know, my client is making me very, very frustrated right now. They're late, or they're just talking about unimportant things, and I'm trying to redirect them back. I could react, or I can take a moment and remember like what the interaction is about, who I am, what my goal is here, and take a second to respond mindfully, so I can choose my words and not have to regret it later, right? Not have to take it back.
Love it. So, Rachel, I'm going to pass it on to you to summarize everything. We're going to get to the questions soon if you want to make comments in the meantime. So,
yeah. So just to review and put this all together, I can't believe that went so fast, right? So thinking about and reviewing the 5 strategies. So far tonight, we have learned about recognizing our assumptions and belief systems, and accepting that uncertainty and chaos are they're constant, right? They're part of our lives. Number 2, assessing those 4 pillars of basic health: sleeping, nutrition, staying physically active, and social support. Number 3, routine, schedule, and boundaries. So important. Number 4, recognizing what is in your control and what you can let go of. Just let go of the rest. It's got to go. It has no business here. And number 5, identify your triggers so you can choose to respond instead of react, right? Think of that tube of toothpaste. It is not fun. You're not shoving that back in. You're gonna have to apologize. So those are the 5 strategies. And then I want to review the questions that are in the chat box, if you can see it, but just in case you can't, or you want to write it down.
and
When you're in these situations,
to put the questions and the things in the chat box. My computer is not completely collaborating right now, but hopefully this will happen in a moment. So,
all right, and I'll read them to you. So what is in your control and what is not? What are you assuming as true or as fact when it might not be? What are areas that I would like to improve on? Why is this important to you? And how are you choosing to feel, behave, and possibly react? I think that's 5 questions and 5 strategies. That's very funny. I don't think that was intentional.
no,
We're so great.
I think so.
Look at us.
So I can see people asking things in the chat, but unfortunately I can't copy the strategies in there right now. I do not know why, but my computer doesn't like something here. So it's not letting me do that, and I have no idea why, so I apologize for that. But if you want a copy of that, do you want to repeat the 5 strategies for a moment, and then also we'll let people know how we can pass it on to them.
Sure. So again, what is in your control and what is not? What are you assuming as true or as a fact when, remember, Judge Judy would not agree with you? Oh, it looks like it went through. What are areas that I would like to improve?
Okay, so I managed to write the strategies in the chat, not in the questions. Hopefully that works. Oh, that should work because, yes, I'm not asking questions. I'm not saying the chat. I can only respond. I'm sorry, everybody. Okay, we're getting there. Okay, the questions we have two. Okay.
Yeah. And so why is this important to you, and how are you choosing to feel, behave, and react?
Okay, so that is coming through. I'm so happy. Okay, okay. So before we head to the Q&A, I would like to ask you this. So has there been any silver linings for you in this pandemic? Okay, think about what new habits, skills that you've learned during this time you would actually like to embrace and take forward with you into the future. And I have to say that I was thinking about this last night, and I was actually surprised at how many things came to mind. And I was so glad I took this moment to pause and to think about it. And I think you heard about a couple of new habits, like the 8 hours of sleep, like going to sleep at 10:30 and not eating after 8. I hope to continue that. We've also started growing a garden that I've been enjoying. I never thought that I would. And we are throwing a lot less food out, which has been one of my husband's pet peeves, and he is just so happy. So while you type in what's been for you, I also want to tell you about a couple of my clients, these things they shared with me that just made me, again, reflect and think about what can be positive here. And one of them is she's a mother of 3, both working parents, okay? Her youngest is 1. And she said to me, Miki, I received a present. And while trying to schedule times to work, her and her husband and everything else, she said to me, you know what? I can spend so much more time with my kids now. And because I have the 1-year-old and I have to watch them, I'm spending more time with all my 3 kids. And in that, I also want to emphasize it really depends on what you choose to look for. So if you choose to see the positive, then you really can. And Rachel, did you want to add something? And I see we have comments coming in of it as well.
Oh, awesome. Okay, I'll share quickly. So my roof is being repaired today. It was like they were hitting me on the head all day long, but that's okay because I heard the leak in my roof that had I been at work, we wouldn't have heard or found out about the leak until there was like serious damage happening, but we were home. Also, my love of slippers I've never cared about slippers ever in my whole life, but it was chilly here in Connecticut for most of the time I've been locked in here. I love slippers so much. I had no idea. I'm never going back. I'm going to wear slippers in my office when I get back there one day. It's going to be great. So those are my 2 takeaways.
And we're getting Kathy saying silver linings, more quality time with my kids when it's empty nest time. I mostly enjoy being at home, more conversations with friends from around the world. I know I've been doing that too.
Yeah.
Because you're not too busy. And what else? And whatever else I've been hearing, Hannah is saying I'm embracing my gray hair. As you can see, I'm embracing the curls.
Me too. I'm with you.
Love wearing comfortable shoes. I'm with you. Rose, I've become a better cook, trying new recipes. We've been playing around with that too. What else do we have here? I think that those are the main things. Well, thank you for sharing that with us.
Yeah.
So, questions. I want to make sure that you all know how to get in touch with us as well, because both Rachel and I are each offering 30 minutes free one-on-one calls. And I am going to put it in the chat again when my computer decides that it's okay. But you can reach Rachel through, you can message her on Instagram at The Grounded Therapist, or you can email her at thegroundedtherapist@gmail.com. You can reach me at Miki, at IamBackatWork.com. That's MIKI, or through the contact us page on IamBackatWork.com, and it's in your chat right now. So any questions that you have, we'd love to hear from you. Cindy's saying, it's very hard to get my daughter to do her schoolwork. All she's doing is turning in her math schoolwork. I can't get her to read. I'm going to have to leave the reading issue alone because my daughter is upset. What do you think? I can tell one thing that I found from other people. First of all, I think we talked about if you need to let go of some things, you do, but like regarding the reading and other stuff, I found from other parents as well that they try to find something that really interests the kid. Okay, what does she love? Does she love dancing? Does she love makeup? I'm just making up things, but if there's something that she loves, to get them to do some reading around that and see, you know, how we can help. And she's in 3rd grade, Cindy's telling us. So what else would you say?
Yeah, I wonder about one, that's the reverse of what I would expect, right? Oh, math. So good for her. And maybe it's, I wonder if there's like reverse psychology right there of like giving her so much credit for being really great at math and how challenging that can be for a lot of other people. And then she might be open to reading or figuring out what the resistance is. Is it because she knows at this point that you're really like frustrated with it? It's also 3rd grade. Like if the reading slacks, like everyone else in her, into every 3rd grader across the planet, she might be right on par. So it's sort of breaking down, like, is this you? Is this her? Where's that line? And what can you let go of?
Good idea. Okay. What if I don't succeed in sticking to a change? So, great question. And I think the main thing here is to try and understand why. So there's usually obstacles, okay? So if you're trying to do something, so let's say I'm going to go back to the sleeping. Why am I not going to sleep on time? Maybe if I worked late and then I want to relax, and then sort of that carries over to the next thing. So I know that the working late has impacted that. Or I'm not exercising. I'm not exercising because I didn't put it into my schedule, or because, again, I didn't sleep enough. So I think a big thing is trying to work out what is standing in the way. Is it a priority for you that you can then make the change and sort of make it stick? And I think a really important thing is going back to the let go. Let go of what you didn't do. Think about what you are going to do forward, okay? Because if you just give yourself a hard time about what you didn't do, it's not going to happen. What else would you say, Rachel?
Sorry, I'm worried about my chimes. They're happening on my, and I don't know how to turn them off. I'm so sorry, guys. So yeah, I think it's just kind of figuring out how you can separate. This is gonna drive me crazy. I'm so sorry, everybody. It's figuring out kind of like what's important to you and what's important to everybody else. I'm going to be very distracted. I apologize. I'm trying to make sure this stops happening.
Answer the next question while you turn everything off. So
yeah, sorry. I did turn it off.
So Jane is asking, is it okay to wear pajamas all day? And I have to say that there's a lot of research that really says that what you wear impacts how you feel. Totally. And I think, first of all, Rachel has the coolest t-shirts, okay, with RBG. I love it. And you know, it's inspiring. And I actually think sometimes for the day, how do I want to feel, okay? And what I wear impacts how I feel. And if I want to feel more professional, I'll dress up more professionally. And they say, you know, when you're in your pajamas, you have your pajama brain. It's a little bit of sort of differentiating a little bit between work and other things, and also feeling a little bit sort of more normal. And what you wear and whether it's up to you, but I really think try and pay attention to how it impacts you. I can tell you some days, on those rainy days when I'm already sort of feeling a bit gray, I'll put on a red scarf or something because I know I need that pick me up.
I love that. I think that's a great idea. And yeah, I may play a good game, but absolutely I wear dresses a lot to like make myself feel more excited and like looking forward. I just like that my feet are comfortable, and also like wearing casual wear is part of the dynamic that I, and sort of like my vibe. So that just makes me feel happy. Especially my Dolly Parton and like collection of awesome lady t-shirts, but they're fitted and they're nice. Like, right, I'm wearing a romper right now, but it makes me so happy. I've been wearing it all day today, and it just brings a smile to my face. So you really have to find the things that work for you. It doesn't have to be full formal wear, right? It's just something that makes you happy.
I agree. I agree. How do I
Yeah.
choose priorities? Rona is asking, how do I choose priorities? So
There's a lot
you
of
start?
matrices for that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's sort of deciding, right? Like what's urgent, right? Like my roof is leaking, super urgent. Had to get on that. I had to get the insurance company and an adjuster, 2 adjusters, by the way. Right? Like we had to act fast. So that was urgent. And then what's important might be is my business, right? Because I can't pay or for the insurance that hopefully is going to pay for the roof, right? Like those things are very interrelated. My husband too, like he has to keep working because one day we'll pay for childcare again, and food and all the expenses that we have. And so that's important. But we also get to decide what's not important and not urgent, right? So subscriptions to things. Do I really need all the sales that are going on for Memorial Day? Like, probably not. Do we need to figure out how to get groceries safely? Super urgent and important, right? And so it's kind of figuring out what's important for you that really makes sense in your life, right? And that goes back to boundaries, but you get to decide. I was on a call this morning and someone was challenging like the clothing, like a leopard print something. Like maybe she does need it. And it's like, yeah, maybe, right? So you kind of get to decide. My urgent and important won't be the same as Mickey's, and it won't be the same as you, but you decide based on a criteria, right? Like paying bills, really important. Easy to ignore. You could shove those under like a desk, but it's going to catch up with you, right? So like you choose your priorities based on urgency, important, and also I love deeming things not important. It feels good.
I have to add to it. I think one thing is you should think about is your values. Okay, so go back to the things that you believe in that are important to you. Like, where do you come from? Why do you want to do these certain things? And sometimes it's also the impact, because am I going to send an email, or am I going to write a blog, or whatever it is, the different things that I want to do? I will think what's more important, what will have more impact on my life, on my work, on different things like that. So to consider that too. Last few seconds to ask more questions, and
I
just before,
love these. These are great questions, by the way. So thank you.
thank you everyone. So I want to remind you again, take advantage of the free 30-minute call with Rachel or I. And I think we're going to finish here, Rachel.
Yay.
So thank you everybody for joining us tonight. Really appreciate you coming and spending the evening with us. Thank you, Rachel.
Thank you, Miki, and we'll talk soon. And thanks everybody for coming and spending the night with us.
Good night. Stay safe and sane.
Yes, sane. That's the key. Bye.